So at least. So in the last session, we looked at learning outcome 4, and that was looking at understanding how to help others in promotion of equality and valuing of diversity, because it's really important that we look at how we can help others as well, because it's not just yourself, but also trying to help others, promote any sort of diversity within their classes or anything like that. We looked at describing actions by individuals which can undermine equality and diversity, to act professionally and to promote equality and diversity, and importantly, to uphold any sort of standards of, policies and legislations that are put in place. We also looked at stereotyping, which is quite a big thing within any organization, where we kind of generalize a group of people based on our assumptions. And I think we all do it. I think it's just sometimes, we don't realize we're doing it, but I think we all kind of do it in some form, but we don't realize sometimes. And it's, you have this opinion of a group of people, or, a minority or majority of people. We also looked at bullying and how that was so important within any sort of educational institution, but also within an organization, trying to make comments to humiliate someone or intimidate someone, because you do get people that are quite defensive but are quite timid as well. We also looked at
absolutely.
the different, and it's difficult sometimes, I think, in a situation where, you're in a situation where you may see some forms of bullying, but you kind of, what bullying for you may not be bullying for them. So it works both ways. We also looked at definition of harassment, and that's like things like, threatening behavior, any sort of undermining someone, demeaning someone. It's unwanted kind of unwelcome, unwanted kind of an issue with harassment. Examples, using derogatory jokes, racial, ethical slurs, commenting on someone's religion as well is quite unethical. We then went on to look at inclusion and look at why inclusivity is so important, and we then went on to look at 4.2 to recommend modifications to systems and structures which do not promote any sort of, diversity, because it's really important when we look at promoting. Why do you think it's so important to promote it and, get others to get involved as well? Why do you think, as an individual, for you, in your experience, why do you think getting others to promote it is important as well?
Because we live in such a diverse society, so I think that's, so everybody needs to kind of be aware of it and be promoting it, really.
Yeah. And I think it's, in a way, there are policies and legislation in place, but sometimes it's our way of doing something to get individuals to recognize it, because not everyone recognizes it. Not everyone. I was just watching oh God, something, Steptoe and Son.
God, that's an old one.
Yeah, I just love Steptoe and Son, but I also, we were talking about this in class, and there was something that some of the programs historically may be quite derogatory to some people because of their perception, like, mind your language. I don't know if you ever...
No, I've never seen that.
That was one where it was a school teacher with people from different cultures, and it was really, really interesting. He was teaching them English, and it's some of the terms used in historically would not be used nowadays because of all the legislation that's in place. So for us to promote that, it's really, really important that we, try to promote diversity and inclusion within our own, settings as well. So when we're going to look at learning outcome 5, we're going to look at in your own contribution. So be able to review your own contribution for promoting equality and valuing diversity in lifelong learning. So it's your own experiences within your workplace. So just to start off about EDI, just a little bit on it within the classroom, you know, how to promote it, how to identify effective teaching practices, you know, and how to nurture people into an inclusive environment, because it's so important, and making sure that settings meet their quality, diversity and inclusion responsibilities, you know, of Ofsted as well. You know, it's really important that we meet core values, ethics, codes of practice, policies, legislation that are put in place, because, you know, we are there to promote this, and it's important in any institution, be it a school or be it any organization, promoting any sort of equality and diversity and inclusion is really important to try to prevent any sort of forms of discrimination or any sort of legal cases against them. This terminology was from an article by on the link I've left there. It's high speed training. Quite a good link, and it's quite an important article. So maybe have a read around it. It gives you ideas of how you should promote it within your own practice and your own contribution. And you know why there's a need for promoting it as well. You're not just fulfilling the legislation or the laws, but you're also, you know, implementing policies from your own experiences. So reflect on your own position strengths in promoting equality and valuing diversity. So equality is ensuring individuals or groups of individuals who are not treated different or less positively on the basis of their specific protected characteristics, which we mentioned before: age, disability, sexual orientation, religion. In promoting that, we are eradicating any sort of areas of harassment, bullying, victimization. And it's there to encourage people to be, you know, free from any forms of discrimination. And, you know, to try and prevent any sort of issues that may, you know, cause a problem in regards to discrimination, because a lot of the laws will have a huge impact on equality and diversity, and we need to make sure that we promote it. But, you know, sometimes we need to make sure that we're not using terms that are offensive or derogatory, which sometimes, and it's not just, you know, working in school, it's sometimes outside as well, you know, where you may be shopping or anything like that, you know, using them kind of terms is a form of bullying or harassment. And, you know, using terms in regards to someone's disability, or and there's a lot going on at the moment with, you know, your sexual orientation, you know, the fact that people are being discriminated based on their sexual orientation. So if they want to, you know, identify themselves as a man or a trans woman, you know, it's and I see that quite a lot within society in general, not just within like schools. And at the moment, I don't know whether it happens within your own setting, but do you have any issues with people with their sexual orientation?
Not in mine at the moment.
No.
No, not mine.
What about like personal experiences out, you know, whether you've got friends and things like that?
Not that I can think of.
No.
No.
Do you think it plays a big role within society for individuals to accept people from different sexual orientations?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Why do you think that's the case?
I don't I don't really know.
Or do you think people are not open to it? Maybe religious beliefs,
Yeah.
you know, their perception that, you know, that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and that's it. Adam and Eve, that's it. You know, people have that
Yeah.
perception.
I think it's, you know, kind of how you know, like the generation we're in. So when we were at school,
Yeah.
it wasn't kind of
Yeah. Yeah, I understand.
Obviously,
Yeah,
was still, you know, but
yeah,
obviously we didn't hear about it. But I think
no,
through, you know, the media and
yeah,
that
yeah,
it's so out there, everyone obviously is more aware of it than they were sort of 20
yeah.
odd years ago when I
Yeah,
was.
I remember. I
And
remember
then,
20 years ago when I was at school, I
but
would have
then
never heard of anything like that. Never.
in my,
Um,
so obviously my dad's in his 70s, so his
yeah,
perception and my perception about obviously a lot of different things would
yeah,
be completely different because
yeah.
he's very kind of old school that
Yes, yes,
probably
yes.
a man should
Yeah,
be a man, a woman should be a woman.
yeah.
But
I
now
told. I
I think,
agree with you 100% because
yeah,
you know, their perceptions is how they've been brought up. Remember things
it's
that
not going
I
to change now. He's, you know,
no,
he's
no,
74.
no,
So,
and they become more stubborn anyway, so they're not going to change anyway.
no,
Yeah,
no.
my dad was 81, and his perception was that, you know, what he felt was right was what he felt was good for him.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and it's very difficult to change
yeah, yeah,
his. It was very difficult because he's passed away, but it was very difficult to change his views.
yeah.
And I think I'm a little bit like that as well because I think that historically when I went to school and probably 25 years ago, 20 years ago, we were never ever, there was no kind of discussion or anything in schools about
No,
sexual orientation or anything like that, you know.
no.
Um,
So when I was doing
yeah,
PSHE or RSC, which is what I'm now teaching at the moment,
yeah,
there was nothing. There was
no,
literally nothing. I don't
nothing.
even think really. So you're talking about obviously trans, but I don't even remember really kind
No,
of
I don't,
being
no,
educated in terms of like gay or lesbian, even
no,
that. So
no.
yeah,
I'm the same, literally the same. And I feel like I was not shielded away from it, but the fact that it was never mentioned by anyone, not just us, but even the teachers and stuff.
well, I don't
Nobody.
think it necessarily would have been because I went to a Catholic all girls school,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
again,
Mm.
where's the inclusivity,
yeah.
you know, embracing, you know,
But
equality and
even
diversity?
in some Catholic schools nowadays, they still don't want to bring
Yeah,
up that kind of stuff. Because I know my nephew, he's at a Catholic
yeah.
school, and predominantly they do not like to bring up anything like that, even though 90%
It's
is
wrong,
Catholic.
isn't it? It's
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you need to be taught, and I think it should be acceptable. But even in Catholic schools, because he's at a Catholic school, and he said 90% of the students there are Catholics, but then 10% are mixed, and he's, you know, obviously one of them that got into a really good school. But the problem is, they shy away from it,
Yeah.
you know, because what do you think, Adrian, about that? I don't know if Adrian's still on.
Oh, so sorry, I'm back. I was busy
I
chewing,
missed
so
you for a while. I didn't
yeah,
hear
I'm
your
sorry.
voice.
Yeah, no. I totally agree. I think it is a generational thing, and I think you know, I know that I think certainly for the homosexual thing, I know
Yeah,
in America, the reason they voted for same-sex marriage was a lot of it was down to the fact that they would get sort of, you know, people going door to door and canvassing about it.
yes,
But
yeah,
the one thing that kind of people would relate to is the fact that kind of most people would know someone who is homosexual or would have a relative that
yeah,
was homosexual. And I think that's, you know, kind of bled
yeah,
into general society. And I
yeah.
mean, of
I
course,
think
you
it
know,
is. I think it
mm,
is a generation thing because I totally agree with you 100% because within Asian culture you would still have some form of arranged marriage if it was your grandparents, whereas the
mm,
tradition now is if it's your mum or dad and they were brought up with the culture, British culture, they would not want you to have an arranged marriage. So it's still, if
mm,
your grandparents are still alive, then it's still
yeah,
that way. I've had students that have come up to me and said, "Oh, my grandparents have decided it." So, you know, in that instance, there's still a lot of input from generations down, and it does have an influence on it.
Oh yeah, it does. And I mean, I think well, you know, there's always going to be that culture war, you know,
Yeah.
where people want to hold on to these things. I mean, you were, I think, was it our first lecture? You were talking about FGM, and
Yeah.
you know, you look at that and
Yeah.
how, you know, it's kind of saying, oh well, it's a tradition, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, of course,
But it's a form of
Against
abuse,
the law,
you
isn't
know.
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
totally, and it's brutal, and you know,
Yeah.
and but yet there are still people that will cling to
Do it.
these things because it's
Yeah.
what they know, you know.
Yeah, Egypt is predominantly 90% of it happens within Egypt, and that's one of the countries I thought wouldn't do it as much.
Really?
Somalia, Sudan, yeah, 90%,
Wow, that's
probably
a
Mm.
lot.
a lot within Egypt, and you know, there's a lot of women that die from it with obviously during
Mm.
childbirth and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
Oh
you know,
wow.
it
I thought
is
it was more I don't know, like, you know, places like you know,
Sudan,
Nigeria.
Somalia, yeah.
Yeah,
Sudan,
Somalia, yeah.
Somalia, yeah, and
Yeah.
Nigeria. Nigeria predominantly has it as well.
Mm.
And but the issue is, you know, it is a form of abuse. It's
Mm.
not, you know,
Yeah,
something
well.
culturally that is acceptable.
Yeah.
And the impact of it, sometimes their argument is saying that it's an Islamic religious thing. It's nothing to do with religion. It is to do with
Mm.
culture. It's a tribal
Mm.
thing and it's a cultural thing.
Mm.
And you know, it's difficult to try to get people to understand that, because
Mm.
if they think it's the norm and they think it's acceptable within their culture, then they're not going to think it's wrong.
Mm. And I mean, interesting. I mean, I know it's different, but there's certainly a growing voice about
Yeah.
you know, circumcision as well.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, of course, you've got well, you know,
Yeah.
you know, particularly the Jewish culture, where
Yeah.
you know, they'll just whip it off, and you know, it is like you said, it is a form of mutilation, you know,
Yeah,
and
it is, yeah.
yeah, and that's, I mean, and I think that's the thing, you know, progress, it happens slowly, and I think
Yeah.
probably happens too quick for some people,
Yes, yeah.
you know, but what can you do?
It's yeah, it's slowly progression, you know, society is changing as societal needs change.
Yeah, I think even the fact that we're having this conversation is a sign of progress, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's and when you can do that with your students, it really helps, you know.
Mm.
Classroom equality and diversity, and this is a picture and there's a video there as well, which we're going to look at later on, and it's looking at the different colors of the apples. What do they represent? What do you think they represent? Do you think it represents different people from different cultures?
That was
And
my first thought.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that was my first thought when I saw this picture, and I thought it's quite a good analogy of, you know, how it represents people of different colors, different cultures. So it's quite good that we watched that video in a little while. So equality in your classroom. So these are some things that, you know, maybe your learning outcome 5 that you're going to do. It may be needed that you may not need to look at it from this perspective. So make sure that every student is treated the same way, because it's really important. Make sure that we meet the needs of the students in various ways. So equal things like, you know, learning styles that we use. Different people learn differently, and according to each student, you know, they may have a different learning style. Be patient and listen to learners, because it's so important that we try to avoid, you know, moving away from not listening to students, especially students that have, you know, any sort of difficulties in learning. And to set challenges for different students is really important as well, because it gets them going and understanding what you're talking about as well. And within when I'm teaching my areas of law, I always incorporate inclusivity into my assignments. And it's really interesting because you see the students and you say, oh yeah, look what you've done, Shaz, you've included us into the assignment. So it just really helps them identify, because if we're doing a scenario on domestic violence or divorce, it's really, really good to incorporate things like inclusivity and different learning styles. Because I have students, most of my students are kinesthetic learners, you know, and some prefer to be doing, you know, like more hands-on than, you know, PowerPoint slides all the time. So, you know, you have different forms of learners and it's good to cater for them. Make sure behaviour is managed in the classroom. And that would be students from any sort of background. Also making learning resources available for learners. Oh, I've got quite a lot of, I'm just looking at my grammar on there, and it's just I was doing quite rushily because I didn't have these slides, so I thought, oh God, I'll do some for them. Promote equality through different teaching methods. Why do you think it's important to incorporate different teaching methods?
Because, like with the learning styles, they all
Yeah.
learn in different ways.
Yeah. Do you think it's important to, in your class, is to try to get everyone involved in it rather than just catering for one person?
Of course it is, because otherwise you're not being inclusive.
Yeah. And also the fact is that, you know, they would be sat in a corner, wouldn't they? They wouldn't understand what you're talking about. They would just be they would feel like they've been left out.
And they've all got the equal you know, right and opportunity
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
learn.
Make sure that discrimination or bullying is not tolerated in your class. That's one of the perceptions that you should have anyway for diversity in a classroom. So as a teacher, you must recognise your differences in the students and accept all students do learn, as we mentioned, in the same way, or style, do not learn, sorry, in the same way, or the style. So it's very important to monitor student progress. Why do you think you need to monitor student progress?
To see if they're obviously learning.
Mm.
To see if they're learning,
Yes.
to see if they're understanding.
So what I tend to do, so at the
Yeah.
start, like a unit or
Yeah.
like a new topic, I'll do like a quiz, and at the end, then I'll do another quiz to see, you know, their
Excellent,
learning
yeah, that's a
progression.
good way.
And then you need to know then what to focus on. So if they already know something,
Yeah.
there's going over it again.
Do you reinforce things at the start of a new session then as well? What they did in the last session?
Yeah, so I always kind of do like a little like a few minutes,
like a summary or a recap.
Yeah,
of
recap
like
of
that.
learning.
Yeah. Because
Yeah, which is what you do as well. Every session you recap the last.
Yeah. I just feel like sometimes with my, and I know teachers out there don't do that, but I feel like if you don't recap on something, I feel like that the student hasn't been engaging the week before. So if you get that involved, because with my law students, sometimes they fall asleep because I teach land law and it's really boring, and I teach constitutional law and it's really boring. So they sometimes fall asleep. So if I don't reinforce things at the start, they're gonna obviously think that, you know, they don't understand, and they're level 4, 5, and 6 students, so they need to be able to, you know, get everything into the head, but also understand, you know, and do some independent learning later on. So I always reinforce stuff, and I think it helps the student understand
100%, especially with my students who are obviously SEN. And obviously they have troubles with, you know, processing and stuff. So it's always good just to recap.
And always ask them questions as well, you know, pose things to them. I'm always picking on my students and they go, we're not in primary school, we're in a university session. I said, yeah, but it doesn't matter. If I don't pick on you, then you're not going to know when you're practicing law and you're out there and a judge asks you a question, then you're not going to be able to represent yourself, are you? So it's better that you are thrown these questions at and then you're able to, you know, respond to them quite quickly. So, you know, students learn differently and different students learn different, but you must cater for most of the all the students, so that you are kind of looking at all different learning styles. Also, respond to students' feedback in teaching. So, you know, if there's a diverse groups with individual needs, respond to them, give them feedback. Some, you know, constructive feedback is really good. I love it myself. You know, if I've done something wrong, if I'm getting a peer observation done, I love constructive feedback. And I don't think it's to hinder someone or make them feel like they're incompetent. I think it makes you improve yourself a little bit more. And that's not just in education, but out there, you know, when you're working as well. Constructive feedback helps. I believe it does anyway.
Mm.
Because I was observed on Tuesday, I said to Shazia, and before I used to see it as kind of, I used to view it as a negative thing, but I think in the last kind of 2 years, when I've really sort of decided that teaching is, I hope, for me. And then I had the observation, and then, you know, I had a really good talk with deputy head afterwards, and it was overall positive. So I've got to take that rather than the things that he said I needed to still work on. Although, to be fair, there wasn't
also, you know, you can also get really good positive feedback. You know,
it doesn't. He said a lot of good things.
And it helps you. It helps you as an individual, and it helps you, you know, look at things from different perspectives as well. You know, they may give you examples of how to do things. You know, maybe spend more time with this student. You know, so it gives you a perception of how to do things. It's also very important to consider cultural backgrounds, interpersonal relationships, and it's very important to consider where the individual where the individual actually comes from, like, you know, diverse perspectives, their lifestyle, you know, cultures, work experience. So sometimes, you know, if you deal with students from SEND, like you said, Patricia, you have to take a lot of things into account, you know, like their lifestyle outside of where you are, where they are with you, because that may impact their learning at the school.
100%, like their home environment.
Yeah, their home environment does have a big impact on it. And sometimes, you know, students try to hide it, but you know, it's good, and it's really important for you to understand their perspective, but also try to learn what's going on in their life outside of there. So 5.2, evaluate the impact of your own practice in promoting equality and diversity and valuing diversity. And there are many impacts of promoting and diversity and equality, and you need to refer this to your own practice when you're doing your own assignment. So things like allowing children of different abilities to work at different levels, as we mentioned, engaging learners actively, so getting them involved, getting them to be active, and getting them to, you know, integrate with other students, because some students are quite timid and they don't like to have like a social interaction. You know, make them sit in a group. You know, I do that with my students for year ones. If they've just started on the degree, I also mix them up, you know, and try to get them to work together, because that environment and that experience is, you know, going to help them improve their learning. And I've done that from year one, and now they all sit together. So it's really good that you know, apply that kind of social interaction in class as well, in a way, because it makes them, you know, feel part of a group. Also, identify 5.3, identify areas for further personal development in promoting equality and diversity. So there's a wide range of areas. So training development needs, professional development, learning walks. For example, the management team show if any irregularities and give feedback. Workshops on equality and diversity, providing e-learning programs on equality and diversity. Make sure the organisation has an equality and diversity policy in place. Self-reflection is really important, and I think that's the key, reflecting on yourself and seeing how you can, you know, further your personal development, but your CPD, you know. Promote cultural events within the class. Make sure that all staff and students are treating equally and fairly, and no forms of discrimination. Now, the SWOT analysis looks at your internal and external factors, and it looks at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this is really good to do.
I hate doing things like this.
Sorry, that.
I hate doing things like this.
I know, but this kind of identifies, you know, it's really hard sometimes to put your weaknesses in, and I feel like I struggle with this as well.
I'm the other way around. Mine's my strengths.
Yeah,
at least all the bad things, but the strengths I'm not so good at. So.
Yeah, but you look at your strength is you work so well with the students. Look, you integrate inclusivity, diversity, equality into your teaching. That's a strength, you know. you know, these kind of strengths, you do it every day, but you don't realize. And to be honest, I'm probably one like that wouldn't be able to list my strengths, but I struggle with I think my weakness is that one of my weaknesses is that I give too much. And I think that's the thing, you know, spoon feed sometimes students. So, you know, it's difficult sometimes. These are really good. SWOT analyses are really good for identifying, you know, what you can put down there and you feel like, you know, what would, you know, impact on your weaknesses, your strengths, your external analysis, things like opportunities, any challenges that can stand in the way. You know, sometimes it could be resources, sometimes it could be the fact that, you know, you don't have sufficient time to spend with the student. So it could be all sorts of things. So, you know, for your learning outcome 5, it would be reflecting on your own practice. SWOT analysis, spend again 5 minutes reflecting on your previous experiences, both as a teacher and an adult learner. What personal qualities and skills do you have? What are you good at? Okay, so you know what you're good at, what you want to improve. Your weaknesses, your internal factors. Think about external factors, you know. Things like, you know, what you could help through PDP, any sort of training that you need. So, you know, it impacts on it. So you need to be able to do a SWOT analysis. Then we've got the next one, which is a personal development plan, and that's really good to write in. It's a written account of your self-reflection and improvement, and it's an action plan used to your personal or career-based goals. So anything you want to do, it's usually created in the workplace or when studying. So any sort of allowing you to establish any sort of aims and objectives and weaknesses. And objectives are put in place to make you improve and, you know, plan your to try and make you achieve them. This is an example of a personal development sample template, and it's looking at the teaching. I don't know if it's really clear. So it looks at the different types, and I have actually put a link to that, which is quite good. So become a team supervisor, and the see, I can't even, my eyesight's not hugely good. So.
Yeah, it's really small.
Yeah.
Oh,
So what are your long-term goals? So promotion in the area of a manager. What are your specific career goals to become a team supervisor? What are the key skills needed for each of your goals? So leadership, communication skills, management skills. What skills do you need to work on? Leadership, project management, networking. What actions are you going to take? So attend training courses, CPD, leadership courses, and when are you going to complete your training? So it's quite good action plan. It's not always a definite action plan because, sorry, a personal development plan, because it's your own personal development, so it could take you a lot longer. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take you 6 months. That's just an estimate of what, you know, the expectation is that you can it might take you, you know, it's not a huge impact on that you've got to complete in this time.
Sorry, Shazi, can I just ask, so are you saying that we should create one to evidence within this unit?
Yeah. Yes, for your own, which we'll look at next week, for your learning outcome 5
You'd need
part
this
of the assignment.
included.
It's your own, you're looking at your own academic strengths and weaknesses, and you will be looking at doing something like this.
Okay.
And your SWOT analysis. Yeah. So, you know, we'll go through it more next week, but I would expect you to do something like this. So it's better for me to have shown you it now rather than, you know, do it next week, which we'll go through a little bit more.
I did something similar for my level 3, so.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it is difficult. Things like this are difficult because people, you talk about yourself, don't you? And it's hard sometimes, isn't it?
I find it hard, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just you. Sometimes I struggle when I've got my my PDR next week, which is about, supervision with my manager. But I kind of don't know what I want to do, what my strengths are, what my future aspirations are. And I always say to him, I think my future aspiration is that I'll be alive for next year. And he just laughs at me because it's something that you don't really think about. Why do you think it's so difficult for you?
So I think it's the same when I come to like my end of year appraisal and stuff, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I think ever since I've been small, I've always kind of lacked self-confidence and
Yeah,
self-belief. So even when, so from my point of view, even if someone like pays me a
Oh my God,
compliment, then I kind of will make kind of a joke back or something.
yeah.
So it's all about my self-confidence and
Yeah,
self-belief.
no, that's understandable.
To
There's
sort of say
people out,
anything nice about myself, I find really hard.
yeah, people out there. There are people out there that struggle with it, and try to, and you're right there. You may be different to how I am. Adrian may be different. He may be able to write lots and lots about himself, and he's quite confident at writing things.
Even
But
when I was practicing as a social worker, and I remember going into the first sort of interviews when I'd first qualified,
Yeah.
and they'd ask you this exact same question: what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And I just,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
the
you
worst.
kind of fall back a little bit. And I was doing an interview for a board member, for a director for the organization I work with, domestic violence, because I was the chair. And when I asked her what your skills, what kind of skills can you bring to the organization, and she probably had a lot of skills, but she couldn't talk about
Can't
anything.
verbalize it.
Yeah, she couldn't do that, and that's what hindered her interview.
Yeah.
Because it fell back, because if you come for even a volunteering position, you should know your skill set. It's difficult sometimes, because I go blank as well myself, trying to, my CV is like probably about 6-7 pages, but but when it comes to it, I struggle to kind of elaborate things a little bit more.
I think it's similar for me. So I knew that my application was good because I'd obviously got the interview.
Yeah.
But then I'm terrible in interviews. Terrible. So I ended up going agency social worker, because all you needed was your CV.
Yeah.
Rather than having to fill in like loads and loads of like application forms, questions, and
I'm probably the same like you.
Yeah.
I think it's a confidence thing. I think I'm okay teaching. I've been teaching for the last 17 years. I'm okay doing that, and I just struggle with actually. What about you, Adrian? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Lucky you.
No, I mean, look, I think I'm always quite good in interviews, but the thing is, I don't think I've necessarily got a very wide breadth of experience. And I mean, when I hear some of the things that you two are doing, I don't think you've got any reason to not feel confident.
Oh, bless you.
I think you both sound like you have just got so much experience in so many different fields, and I just sometimes wonder if sometimes it's a societal thing where maybe I mean, this is just purely an observation. I don't know if it's true or not, but maybe in England, like, we're not sort of like kind of like, it's not sort of, we don't want to come across as being like smug gits and like, being overly confident. And and I don't know if there is an aspect of that, because I'm always kind of nervous when I meet people that like big themselves up too much, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I
think there's a balance, isn't there? I think
Yeah. you don't want to come across arrogant at the end of the day.
And overconfidence, because
And yeah, absolutely. But like I said, I think I have to fall back a lot on language really in interviews, whereas I think you two sound like you've got so much experience that I'd kill for.
It just doesn't. It never translates well for me, Adrian.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
I think I remember.
I understand that.
So I remember when I was applying to university, so I went to Greenwich, and I really wanted to go to Kingston because the course was literally like fantastic for social work. I just couldn't speak. It was just, it was just awful. And it was only one person interviewing me as well. I just froze. Like, I remember it now.
I think people have this perception of, what the expectation is. And sometimes you're not expected to do that much, really.
And I think because I put that much pressure on myself, which that's something I'm quite good at as well, then I'm almost setting myself up to fail. But that's kind of me. I don't know. It's just it's hard to explain.
And this is good, this personal development plan and SWOT analysis is really good for you to reflect on your teaching and your opportunities and strengths and weaknesses. So it's really good. I think it's a good way of doing it. So we've finished Learning Outcome 5 now. And this looks at more your own contribution, and there's some links there that I've put that are really good, and the videos there as well if you want to watch it in your own time. It's really good on reflecting on different types of issues around diversity and inclusion. We've got let me just have a look here. A link there to the PDP sample as well, which I've put on there, and it's a really good sample. I don't know if you can just link on it and open it up. It's a PDP sample of a PDF document, and it looks at a template that you could look at. And what we've looked at is your own contribution. It's really important for this part, for 5-point Learning Outcome 5, that you look at your own contribution and how you promote that in your own kind of environment. Refer, like we said, to ebooks online on Moodle, and the assignment is due 2 weeks after the submission of the module being completed. So the assignment session is next week, and then after that you have 2 weeks to complete the learning outcomes. I have
that way.
The learning outcome.
No, what date will the assignment be due?
I think it's 2 weeks after submission. They do give you a bit of flexibility as well. If you have any issues, you just email learnerworks@UK Varsity. But 2 weeks after that, they'll submit it, and then it's submitted to LearnerWorks. Then I'll get it. Make sure that and I'll talk to you about this next week, when it's you doing your assignments, make sure that you have your headings for each bit that you've completed, so that it identifies that you've completed all of the learning outcomes and the actual elements within that learning outcome, which I'll go through with you next week, so you have a better idea. So we finished Learning Outcome 5 now. Has anyone got any questions?
So would that be effectively it would be due like after Easter, I would imagine? Is that the plan?
I think that's our last session, and then maybe after Easter you've got that 2 weeks off in Easter, but they may give you an extra week, or if you need some extra time, you can speak to the staff at UK Varsity, and if you need extra time, they are quite flexible like that, but it's normally 2 weeks after.
Okay, all right then.
Can I just ask, because I'm one of these people that I don't know how you work, Adrian, but I research and I research and I research, and then when it comes to like pen to paper, I just get completely I just go completely crazy, and I have like words coming out of my ears. So is there like a guidance on word count? Obviously that really unique.
The actual requirements that I've got with the assignment, there's no actual word count on here. But what I might do is tomorrow I will contact them and find out, and I will send you the assignment plus the word count, because I'm going to email you both the assignment.
It's really helpful to have that.
Yeah, no, I'll do that. I'll do that tomorrow, definitely, and I'll also email you the assignment so you've got time to have a look at it beforehand.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because
the assignment is no different from the Unit 13 assignment that you have got. I've just put in a couple of scenarios, so you just need to refer to them really.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
okay. Till I start writing it.
No, you'll be okay. Don't worry about that. Have you got any questions?
I don't
No.
Adrian
No, all good, thank you.
and Patricia, have you got any
No.
questions?
I'm all right, actually. Thank you.
Have a nice week, and I will see you
You
next
too.
week. You take care.
Fantastic. You take care too.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. See you
Bye,
next
Patricia.
week.
Bye.
Bye.
Shazia, bye.
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 Bye.